And as I was saying about the last part of the movie, Gary Oldman, The Professional, it's great. Go watch it. Yeah.
Part 2 of our conversation on villains in the film. Good point on that last part there, Steve. That was wonderful.
Actually, wait a minute. It's more like kids.
In our last episode, we left off with Steve talking about the movie The Professional, which was really a good film. One of my favorites too.
Yeah. When did The Professional come out?
Man, like in the early 90s?
Not even. Was it that early? I thought it was like late 80s, wasn't it?
Late 80s?
80s. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Just curious.
I remember seeing it in the movie with Rod. We went to go check it out in the movie.
We are all way wrong. It is 1994.
I said early 90s.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there was one guy who was right who's never here. So
yeah. So it kind of like almost sort of doesn't really quite count, but close enough.
Well, you're here, so
yeah.
Can I throw in one more movie villain? Then I can be quiet the rest of the way.
No, you can't be quiet the rest of the way because you're sitting here. Secondly, yes,
you're here. We're all here. We're all in. You're all in.
I wasn't going to mention it before because I felt a little insecure because it's an animated villain, but I'm a child at heart. So it's Frollo, and this is the character from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, good.
I was just mesmerized by just how it's tough to find an adjective to describe him. I mean, he was dastardly, but that's just too kind. He was like sinuous, like a snake. He was just rolling with oozing.
He was truly what the perception of evil religious was back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, he was a person who took advantage of his station.
Mm-hmm.
He was someone who was a misogynist of the highest order.
Believed he was the biggest good guy.
Yeah, right, exactly. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong. He thought he was doing something good by taking in the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Quasimodo, but he was abusive to Quasimodo mentally, emotionally. Because it's a Disney movie, they probably didn't show the physical abuse that I'm sure he heaped upon him, because back then corporal punishment was kind of like, the rule of the day. He was inquisitorial in a manner of speaking. And all around he was lustful. I mean, he was majorly lustful. He clearly wanted Esmeralda for his own, and he was he would stoop to almost nothing to get to her. It was just in the way they shot him a lot of times, it was almost looking up. So you got to see him looking down in a condescending kind of way as he was making his judgment or his proclamations, or however he was issuing what he was doing to belittle Quasimodo, put himself in a position to acquire Esmeralda, burn the city if he needed to, if he couldn't get his way, to lie, which was completely go against everything that he was supposed to stand for. And it was almost like you were almost powerless, because he was kind of the example of the power. He had that kind of authority back then, because the church was, not just your spiritual and religious leader, they were also your political leaders back then as well. And it was just like, how do you defeat this person who has so much power, so much prestige, authority, esteem, and you're a gypsy, or you're a misshapen, person who doesn't quite have, the same platform that this guy had. And if you watch the movie, it's just, from the very beginning, almost at the doorstep of the church, where he's chasing down the woman who was pregnant, who I guess had Quasimodo at the time. It was just like, this dude is just a piece of work, and I loved him. It was just like, wow, like how to convey such, a manipulative evil it was a different kind of movie villain for Disney at that time too. I mean, usually there's so much more, black and white in terms of their villainy. His was just underlying, sinuous. It's almost like having that snake talk to you and convince you to bite the apple, so to speak. And I'm using religious tropes here, but that's exactly. And it's just, I forget the actor who I think was something Day or Tony or something. I can't remember the actor's name, but he did such an excellent job. And you could just, in his voice, you can just hear, the duality in which he spoke. It was just he really, to me, made the movie a lot more than what it was. And that's as an adult looking at it. I think children are probably seeing Quasimodo and he's being taken advantage of. You look at Esmeralda and, there's a lot of things happening that are there for the kids. But I think for the adults, that villain was there because what made it so much more powerful as a villain is that, people like that really existed, that's a real type of person. It's not like, from the Tarzan where, okay, you're never really going to come across that villain. It's not from some other Disney movie where, okay, the car really isn't going to happen. This was a real person. This wasn't like, some Sleeping Beauty where it's the town, but that was back in the 1700s. And yeah, they were bad, but they were a little over. This was a type of person that you come across on a daily. You can still experience this person today, and the scary thing is with the religious, and I don't mean to offend anyone's religion, but those types of elements have been there with, priests that's come out over the last 15, 20, 30 years with them taking advantage of their station. So, they exist, it was just like, wow, like Disney kind of like went there a little bit with this one. So he was just so despicable because the reality of him was so possible. And I thought they did a really good job of using that in this movie. And maybe I just took it more than what it was. But if you get a chance to watch, you haven't seen it, kind of watch as you're watching him. And he's like, wow, he's a scene stealer too. So that's my last one.
What's the name of the movie again?
The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, it is The Hunchback.
Yeah. It's the enemy 96.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that this story does well, and it's a part of what Victor Hugo wrote in the first place, was the humanity within us all.
Mm-hmm.
And this Frollo guy treats Quasimodo not as a human being, and not even as an animal, not even as good as a donkey or a dog on the street. He is obviously a sinner because he has been deformed. And that's all a part of the storyline there. And Disney did a good job in picking and choosing exactly what parts of that they were going to show without getting into the really, deep stuff that's in the novel.
Well, to keep the Disney ideology going here, there's another cartoon, animated feature, that shows excuse my French. Do that in for Karen. The fact that you can actually idolize someone who's one of the most horrible people in the world and not know it because of the stories and the perception that is cast before you. And that movie's Coco.
Well, get out of my head.
Didn't see that one yet.
Really?
I did. Yeah.
Oh my God.
The girl saw it.
It's excellent.
It's one of the best films I've seen in a long time, animated films. And the villain in this film is portrayed as a hero throughout the majority of the film.
Yep.
And the sad thing is he is idolized by the youngest, most impressionable person in the film, which is this young boy who's trying to understand his Mexican heritage and the holiday, the Festival of the Dead, and where you have a way to have a relationship with the people who have passed away, the loved ones that you have, and this festival is honoring them, honoring their existence. And of course, with regard to the animation, the people come back and visit their families, right? Well, here's a kid who idolizes this wonderful musical and acting icon, just to find out that he's not who he seems to be. And to find out even more, not only is he not who he seems to be, he's much more evil and diabolical than he would have ever imagined, and was not even part of what he was ever even thinking would ever occur. And that makes them one of the more horrific villains in film.
Well, and then it was not only that, but also this little child, also the things that he thought were in his way, the parents that he lived with, or the grandparents or whatever, they were actually part of what, once he sort of understood their value to him in his life, they become part of what helps to get him on a different path. But before that, it was just like he was all in on the guy that he was idolizing, who was like just this supposedly amazing person. And like the parents and the grandparents were just like so annoying, but nothing was as it seemed in this movie, which is one of the things I love. It's one of the best animated films. To me, it totally deserved the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature from 2017. It was just, or 16, whenever it won, it was just brilliantly done.
And it's not the first time that we've discussed the film, because one of the really cool things about it is that it hits every emotional peak. It's your fear, your insecurity, your motivation. I mean, the horror of humanity. It hits every chord, and it resonates throughout the whole film. It was nicely done. Benjamin Bratt did a great job as Ernesto de la Cruz, the man we love to hate. So yeah, this was really good. Really done well.
Well, can I throw something in here at the risk of just being booed off the stage here? Okay.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, please! I'll boo right away.
Yes.
First of all, wait a minute. Where is it? Oh, the boo machine's right here. Hold on, I'm gonna.
Okay, so my all-time favorite villain, I was gonna say, is the Wicked Witch of the West, but that's a bit of.
You already said that.
I know.
So it's a repetitive villain.
That's a bit misleading, because what I was gonna say.
Because it was her sister was worse.
God, it was Dorothy.
Toto.
Totally
Toto.
Oh my God. Stupid dog.
No, it was the mayor of Munchkinland.
In my
the
favorite,
wizard really wasn't a wizard, was he?
in my favorite movie of all time, I was going to say that while the Wicked Witch of the West is posited as the villain, she's not really the villain. I mean, she acts like the villain, but who really is the villain in this movie is the wizard. It's the Wizard of Oz. That's
Absolutely.
the villain.
That's true. He's a liar.
He's like the worst one. He lies. He hands out worthless trinkets and tells people to just kind of like go with it. And it's like, yeah, take that balloon ride.
And he faked the balloon ride. He was never ever going to be in that balloon.
Right. So totally lies. Then he tells Dorothy, who's an impressionable teenager. Now, my second villain is Dorothy, because she's the only one who actually kills people in the movie.
That's not exactly true. The house is a villain.
Well,
No. It's the tornado.
It's a tornado.
The house is a tool for the villain. The tornado's the villain.
she's the only human who goes around killing other people.
And this movie is a great movie to show the difference between a monster and a villain. The Wicked Witch is a monster, and the wizard is the villain.
Yes,
I absolutely
the wizard is
agree
totally
with that.
the villain.
And Dorothy is the dictator because she took over the army.
No.
I remember. Oh, Dorothy killed the witch. We're free.
I know things.
And yeah, to turn off the thermostat.
Oh my God. What I see, this is why I did not want to bring it up. But anyway, what I was going to say is that some of the things that he trots out, these sorts of platitudes that he trots out as if they're true and they actually have meaning, and they have no meaning. Like at one point he says, and remember, he says to the Tin Man, and remember, my sentimental friend, a heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others. And I'm like, that is crap. Why are you telling us that a heart is totally judged by how much you love? What the heck are you talking about?
It was economical. You didn't have to pay him anything.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, are you kidding me, dude? Really? And then he had a couple of other things that he just trotted out there.
What makes this movie then okay for kids to watch is that there is redemption here. And
It's not coming from the wizard.
no, it's coming from Dorothy accepting the wizard for who he is. And it comes from the others accepting the wizard for who he is. And so therefore there is redemption. I'm not saying he isn't the villain, but I am saying that he's redeemed through the main character.
Okay, she says, you're a very bad man. And he says,
Yeah.
oh, no, I'm a very good man. I'm just a really bad wizard. I'm like, that's crap. You are a bad man.
I'm agreeing with you there, but I'm going.
And the way that you set up this whole regime with the whole, you tell these people that you're gonna like save them with the balloon, and then you set up like this empire. And,
Okay.
but you're
I don't know.
completely.
Is
Can I
he
say
bad?
something?
Is he
Can
a
I
bad
say-
man or is he an opportunist?
Well, can I say something?
Yes.
If you're gullible enough to think you're going to be saved by a balloon, then who's really the villain? I think it's you.
I think he's an opportunist. I don't know if he was a bad man. He just took it, he just.
Okay, so all right, so I'm going to interrupt you all here, and I've got one more villain that I have to give to you because he's one of the greatest villains in cinema history.
I wonder if it's who I think it is.
Harvey Weinstein.
Almost.
Kaiser
Not
Soze.
quite.
Oh, I know. Bob
Yes.
Cratchit in the Christmas Carol.
Was I right?
You are right.
Kaiser Soze.
Yes.
But he doesn't exist.
True.
Fact.
Wait,
He is a persona created by what's his
Evil
name?
villain man.
Spacey? The Gimp?
The Gimp.
Yeah.
The Gimp.
Get the Gimp. Well, he's asleep. Well, wake him up.
The Usual Suspect,
Mhm.
starring Kevin Spacey
oh,
as the real bad guy.
see, I've never
Yeah.
seen this movie.
Really?
It's
Oh, my
probably
goodness.
Oh,
one of the best movies.
It's one of those ones where you always see the movies get 4 stars or 3 stars or 4 stars. It got 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a 5-star.
And it's hard to watch. It's
It is.
very hard to watch. And you watch this movie, this story evolve about this myth of this monster of a man who is truly Satan on earth. and then Kevin Spacey transforms away from that helpless cripple to this monster on earth at the end. And it's incredible, and it's powerful, and it almost slaps you in the face by going, "Wake up!" Bam! If you didn't
But
see
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that character. He found out a lot of information on the people who he could trust and who he couldn't trust.
Yeah.
And he became somewhat of a serial killer as the movie went on.
Oh yeah, and anybody who could identify him, gone.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good call.
That is a good call. But you know another villain who didn't know he was a villain, but he ended up being a villain, but he was too confused to realize that he was a villain because he actually thought he was doing the right thing, and it's all because of a little girl.
Are you talking about a Falling Down?
No.
Okay.
Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver.
Oh yeah.
Was he the villain?
See,
Yeah.
that's just it. He was the villain, but he didn't think he was the villain. He thought he was doing a favor, but he wasn't really doing a favor because, frankly, he didn't know what was going on. Look, you want me? You talking about me? Yeah, we're talking about you. You're a villain. You're a killer.
Was he a villain or an anti-hero?
Yes.
But here you've got a situation where you have a character that is so part of society. He's a taxi driver, but he's so removed from society because of how he thinks and how he works and how he does things.
It's very creepy.
And he almost cannot tell the difference between right from wrong. And to him, sometimes if you watch the film carefully, you realize that right from wrong might be convenient versus inconvenient. And here is, you see him, again, you have to also look at Western religion here, because his grasp on moral fortitude slips as he's going more towards, convenience and allowing his anger to take over. Does that make sense to everybody here?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
you see a downward spiral for a person who,
Right.
clearly he's a vet, and with that you have certain already predisposed thoughts as to, he may be someone who have a little bit of PTSD, or may have seen or done something over there that has kind of kept him a little left of center, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you kind of see that, and then you see how his in terms of relating to people, he seems a little off, but initially there's something redeeming because of his infatuation with Sybil Shepherd, but yet he ruins that because he's not quite a stalker, but he's kind of like a stalker in a way. I mean, first he comes across as someone who's maybe a little shy, doesn't quite know how to approach her, but the way that he continually observes her, that it moves beyond that, and it becomes that edgy kind of stalkerish kind of way. But then again, he seems redeeming because of how he tries to help the prostitute and young Jodie Foster. But then again, his vigilantism puts him in a different spot. And he's also someone who wants to take out the political person who's running. I don't know if it was for mayor. I can't remember what position he was running for. So it's like every time you want to think maybe he's okay, there's something that's like almost a 180 of where you think he's okay. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, is he a villain? Is he victimized by his environment? Is he a product of his environment, which makes him somewhat less responsible? Or how accountable is he? That he's a complex character. I mean, we're all complex, but he's a conflicted, complex character.
And that's a great sign of really good acting and really good writing.
Yeah.
I would agree with you completely on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one for you. I'm gonna throw this out there, and you all tell me what you think.
Ooh.
Boo.
Saint or sinner? Evil or not evil? Joan Crawford. Okay, don't all say anything at once.
I
Mommy Dearest?
don't like wire hangers.
Oh. Was that evil or not? I think that was evil incarnate.
She was misunderstood.
Yeah, as any parent knows, no more wire hangers. Stop being the claws. Do what I tell you to do. I'm done with you. I can't take it anymore.
And that was the nice part.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean,
Just saying.
you lean towards, off her rocker a little bit. I think as the movie progresses, you see again the decline of a person, and it moves from rational to okay, yeah, she's a little intense, to okay, maybe she's having a bad day, to well, that was sort of kind of unnecessary, to that's irrational, to you know what, you're just screwed up in the head.
This trope is used time and time again. You said it perfectly. As this person is falling, and you get into this downward spiral. She gets into a downward spiral, and eventually has lost even sight of the way out, let alone being able to get out. They can't even see it anymore. And it's almost that twisted, that twisted journey in Dante's Inferno, where you have to get through the devil here. Only they don't get all the way through. And I had mentioned earlier a moment ago, Falling Down.
Yeah.
And Michael Douglas, thank you. Here's a guy who's done everything right the way he's supposed to do with his job, but before the movie even starts, he's already lost his family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so something isn't right here. Now, whether it's the situation he's in or whatever, all we know it's not right. And then we realize he's lying about going to work. And we just one step after another until he becomes his worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. Okay, I got another one for you. Go ahead, Steve.
Steve?
Okay. The one thing we haven't done and we've tried to avoid is the actual horror genre or horrorcore genre or anything like that. I do have a guilty pleasure of movies in this, what I would still consider in this genre.
Okay.
Freddy Krueger.
And I enjoy the Saw movies.
Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
the Saw movies. So Tobin Bell plays Jigsaw.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting for the character because we can sit there and go, okay, this guy is a villain.
Right.
Point blank
Yeah.
period. Like it's an undeniable fact that he is a villain.
Okay.
But the things that he does where he captures these people who he believes are not valuing the life that they are given, whether it be through drugs, whether it be through crime, whether it be through a multitude of different things. Even cops that have lost their way have been a point of his games. And he puts them in situations where they have to play the game. If you don't play, you die, which is pretty much self-explanatory. But there is a way out. And how much do you value being alive? How much do you value making it to the next day, seeing your family again, paying for the crimes that you've committed? And you can really see it in his explanation in the second Saw movie where he takes puzzle pieces off of people's skin. He cuts out a little puzzle piece, takes it off, because they were missing a vital piece of what is considered the human puzzle.
Mm.
And that's the value of life. And he is a guy that knows what he's doing and does it more so to bad people. This is not a guy that's doing it to the local mom who's taking care of her family, is working 3 jobs. This is a guy who's doing it to, a woman with a drug problem who's going to get herself killed. Cops that have taken the law into their own hands and have not been judged for the things that they've done, and people that have become so overwhelmed that it has cost them their family and has taken a toll on themselves, their family. They've caused problems within their own lives. And it's an interesting take on the villain that we know, as there are people that have come out the other side of these games better people. Now, there's a lot of them that are not. There's a lot of them that do not come out the other side as good.
There's another twist to this, and this is not a very popular twist about the Saw movies, is that this guy here is, and I'm going to use a very cliche word here, but he's very codependent.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to see other people's pain for him to know his own.
Mm-hmm.
So does that make him
evil?
Say that again?
Does that make him evil?
Yes, because he's not being responsible for his own pain.
Mm-hmm.
You see, he's making other people feel his own pain, his own disconnect to life.
Mm-hmm.
And
by
he's
trying to make them appreciate the disconnect.
But you see, I don't think
he's a disconnect that he does, but he wants to make them appreciate it and lose that disconnect.
Ultimately, I don't think he wants them to appreciate it at all. I think he's trying to satisfy his own desire to feel alive and to feel the connection again. And that's really
that would make you evil.
Yeah.
That's very villain.
Angry or evil or angry?
Evil.
Yes.
That's evil.
Yes. It's
Angrily
both.
evil.
It really is both.
Yeah.
The taking your anger and carrying it out in a way which causes pain to others would be evil.
Yep. Yep.
Even if
And
those
that
people
is
are bad themselves.
Yeah, and that's a common trope used in with villains forever. I mean, look at White Heat with James Cagney. Here's the guy who has a lot of anger, and he expresses that anger by giving pain to other people, by killing them, by robbing them, by whatever means to hurt them.
Your camera fell there.
We're looking at.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I know. I know. I'm sorry. I should have done this here and gone. Okay, yeah, I'm still here, but I'm not.
Okay, got it.
Also, one thing to say about Jigsaw is this man is doing things like this after he's dead. This man has such a control over the situation and of the people that he has saved, in that have also followed kind of his footsteps in kind of a religious, a prophetic sense. That this man is dead. This man is dead for a period of time once the movie Jigsaw comes out, and these things are still happening. So, like, cult leader evil, like we have evil, we have horror evil, we have cult leader evil, we have genius evil, we have angry evil, and then we have, a level of psychosis that goes into this too. This is like a giant ball or a cocktail of evil that we have really mixed up here with this guy. Just one guy.
What about...
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. That's all I'm saying.
What about the evil that is portrayed through conversation, intellect?
I've got a great movie for that.
I do too, but I'm going to mention mine. I hope it's not the same one because I'm not trying to be in your head this time, Karen, because you did not bring the chips.
I'm attached to her.
Well, that's a little different. That's kind of Harry Potter.
It's getting into a whole different area.
Harry Potterish behind the door thing. But in Inglourious Bastards, one of the classiest, sadistic villains is Hans. I'm probably not going to say it right. Hans Landa. I watched this guy be polite. Seemingly at first cordial, seemingly caring, until the first person dies. Then after that, it's just like he's so giving and he draws you in so much that you don't see the pure evil that's in front of you. That's pretty evil, dude.
Yeah.
And I didn't even like that movie that much. The best part about the movie was the evil guy. There you go.
So I've got a classic two-dimensional villain, the way it's written, but the way it's performed, it's wonderful and three-dimensional, is Franz Gruber in Die Hard.
I was going to mention him earlier. I'm glad you brought him up. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go for it.
No. You. I've been talking all night. Go ahead.
And he said he would stop.
He's so evil.
Evil.
I actually, right quick, I actually want my two younger daughters to watch Die Hard just so they can kind of, because they know him as Snape from Harry Potter, but I just want them to see a younger Snape be a different kind of villain. But go ahead.
First of all, what's the actor's name again? Please help me out here.
Alan Rickman.
Thank you, Alan Rickman.
The late great Alan Rickman.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And if you haven't seen Bottle Shock with him, where he's the good guy, then you got to see it. But he does such a great job at just playing the two-dimensional villain that, as long as he can see it and he can plan it and he can hold it, he will win, and he knows this. and the one foil is the accidental cop. And he knows that if he can't put a pin in that, the whole plan will fall down. And you see him. So here's kind of a reversal here. You see Alan Rickman's character going from total control to losing a little bit more, to losing a little bit more, to losing a little more. And yet at the same time, he maintains that villainous character. There's no redemption for him. He will die at the end of this film. And we are glad to see him fall off of that building.
You are not kidding. It is cinema Hollywood magic right there.
But it was such delicious fun. And he had so much fun with that role. You could just tell he was having a blast, and that's why.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's when I first fell in love with Alan Rickman. It was that guy. I was like, who is he? Adrian Lyne, who played the computer genius in the Gang of Crooks. Not Adrian Lyne. Adrian Lester. I mean, not Adrian Lyne. Adrian Lester. British actor, first saw him in Die Hard. He also went on to co-star in Primary Colors with John Travolta and Emma Thompson. And he's done a bunch of stuff on the Brit side. But I just loved him in that movie. And I fell in love with Alan Rickman. I just thought he was awesome, just pure awesomeness.
And it's Alan Rickman that has made Die Hard one of my favorite Christmas movies.
Yeah, it really is a Christmas movie.
Everybody says, how is that a Christmas movie? But it is.
It is.
The weather outside is frightful.
I've got one more movie that I want to bring up, because even though I have been talking all night, I don't care. This villain is not human, but it's pernicious, I think, and it infects our society today. And this movie's been remade a couple of times, but it was most recently remade, I believe, in 2017. It's called The Dinner. Richard Gere, Laura Linney.
Yeah.
Yes. Where you've got these, fairly comfortable, fairly well-to-do parents of kids. And these kids, are running around doing whatever. They come across this homeless person who's basically minding her own business in a telephone booth. They decide to torment her. They set the telephone booth on fire and kill her. Okay. So the parents, after realizing what this horrible thing that their kids have done, they have this dinner to talk about what to do. Do we snitch on our kids, or do we not snitch on our kids? Do we flee to a South American country? What do we do? And so for me, in this movie, the villain, and it's fairly obvious, the villain is entitlement. This notion that, I'm a good person, and if I'm a good person, then my kids are going to be good. So even if they do something really horrible, they don't deserve the bad consequences that come from that, like a bad person would deserve. So it's not like if you do something bad, then you can be punished and that will be bad. It's more like if you do something bad but you're a good person, then you don't really have to be punished because you're a good person. But if you do something bad and you're a bad person, then you do have to be punished. So even though that homeless person didn't really do anything, she was already evil because she was homeless and she had no business being in the phone booth. And if she hadn't been there, this never would have happened. But those kids, they may not be able to go to college. They might have a criminal record. What will become of them? They could end up being, I don't know, middle class. And how can we live with the scourge?
And the middle class is truly evil.
What will our neighbors say? That's what's going on here. Entitlement is such the villain here, and it's pernicious even today.
Well, here's one of the villains that we have right now. It's time, guys. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us for our second edition of The Villains.